And roll.
Weed, pot, bud, marijuana, or whatever you like to call it. I'm sure most of you have heard of or even tried cannabis in your lifetime. If not, it's a plant that contains THC, which is a chemical compound used to get high. Now, have you heard of or tried hash oil? Chances are most of you haven't, because it's so hard to get your hands on and it's expensive. I'm going to explain to you the process that it takes to make hash oil from the cannabis in two ways that people use it: smoking it and using it in foods known as edibles. The process of making hash oil begins by getting your cannabis from your local dispensary. The better the plant, the better the oil, Andrew Singula says of Dabs R Us. In order for your cannabis to be made into oil, you must first dry it. This process starts by putting your cannabis into a mason jar. You leave it there for about 24 hours. You will know when your cannabis is dry because it will have a complete different texture and smell to it. Next, you put your cannabis into a specially made tube that's going to have one end open and one end with a filter. You go to your local hardware store and get the purest butane you can find. You're going to place your butane on the open end and run it through your cannabis. This is going to strip your cannabis of the THC. The other end, where the filter is, your oil will run out of. Your oil is going to be a brownish gold color depending on the type of cannabis you're using. You then boil the oil until all the water is evaporated. You are then left with pure hash oil. Now that you have made your oil, you're probably wondering how people use it. There are two main ways that people use hash oil. The first is smoking the hash oil out of a specially made bong or rig. This is often referred to as dabbing. The rig has a special nail attached to the end of it that can be made from many materials. The best are either ceramic or titanium, because they can stand the high temperatures that it takes to use the oil. You first heat the nail with a butane torch. You heat it until it's red hot. After the nail in the rig is heated at a very high temperature, you're going to get your oil out of your container. You're going to get your oil with something called a dab rod, which is a metal rod that looks like something they would use at the dentist. Once the small amount of oil is on the dabber and the nail is heated, you're going to place the oil onto the nail and wait for it to start smoking. Once it has started smoking, you are going to cap the nail with a dome-shaped object to make sure that you get all of the smoke off of that oil. Now what about the people who can't or don't want to smoke or dab the oil? The second most common way is putting the oil into edibles. This way is a better alternative for those who don't or can't smoke the oil. The oil can be mixed with many different ingredients to be made into anything you would like. Commonly made products are cookies, cakes, and candies, according to Rick Simpson, a well-known oil maker. They rarely taste different from the product that would typically get without the oil. Now that you know the process that it takes to make the hash oil and two ways that people use the oil, hopefully you're more educated on the idea of this form of cannabis. The process of making the hash oil is relatively same from producer to producer. There are just a few different little quirks that people like to use, like different filters and different types of cannabis. Knowing the different forms of hash oil and the ways that people use it can help a person to be more open to the idea if they were to ever need or use the product again.